So, good afternoon once again to everybody. I would like to welcome you all to yet another session of knowledge sharing conducted by SolutionBuggy. And like you all know, there is a lot of talk about ethanol today in the current market, and we see a lot of people coming to us asking us about what are the best opportunities and what is this ethanol scheme. So we, as you have, some of you have already attended our previous session. We thought we could, do a small tech talk kind of thing and explain exactly what is involved in this. What exactly is ethanol? Why is it required? What are the government schemes that are available? And also in terms of how we can help new entrepreneur getting into ethanol processing. So with that, you would obviously have heard a lot about EBP 2022, an interest subvention scheme. So all these, let us try to understand in the next 1 hour all these terms. So before I start, I would like to, many of you already know what SolutionBuggy is, but I would like to give a quick introduction. We are an online platform to connect the manufacturing industries with the experts. In fact, we are India's largest platform for the MSME sector. And as of today, we have about 10,000 experts on the platform. And we, over the last 6 years, we have done more than 2,000 projects across India. And when I say projects, it could be anything from a one-day consulting assignment, for example, in lean management or a training program, all the way up to setting up of an industry, right from concept to commercialization stage. So which includes basically market research, product identification, detailed project report, machinery procurement, plant setup, commissioning, supply chain management, sales and marketing. Anything that is required for a existing manufacturing industry, we look after that. Or a new entrepreneur who wants to enter into the manufacturing sector. Although we focus on all the sectors, the core ones, that have a lot of projects that we are doing on are food and beverage, chemicals, pharma, aerospace and defense, electronics, and some of the trending sectors such as EV, battery manufacturing, ethanol plant setup, nutraceuticals, immunity-based foods, cosmetics, geotextiles, etc. So with that, today's session will be predominantly led by myself, Guru Prasad. I'm the director at SolutionBuggy. Basically, I'm a engineer and also an MBA from IIM Bangalore. And then I have Nitin Gowda, who is the project manager at SolutionBuggy. Welcome, Nitin. And together we look after the food and beverages and the ethanol related projects. Shortly, at about halfway through the call, we'll be also joined by another expert, Mr. Venkatesh, who will be basically looking after the Q&A and the different doubts that the participants might have. So, since we have already learned a lot about, since we have already seen a lot about what the ethanol processing is, and also, basically try to understand how, ethanol is being used in the fuel blending program. So basically, in the agenda of the webinar today, we will learn what is the ethanol project, what is the exact ethanol blending program, the salient features of the 2022 EBP scheme, who is eligible for this, and then Nitin will take us through a few slides wherein he'll be talking about how to apply for the subvention scheme, what are the basic requirements, what is the pre-assessment required for the ethanol project. And finally, we can also look at what is the need for ethanol today and how is India going to achieve it. And also we can look at some of the other options that are available for somebody who is looking into this particular segment. So all of us have seen this a lot in the last few days, especially a lot of media coverage as well, in a lot of government orders as well, which are coming in, basically trying to speed up the entire process. So if we had looked at this over a year or a two back, you would have seen that the targets were for 2030. But with very aggressive, planning from the government, they're looking at doing EBP 20, that is 20% blending of ethanol with petrol by 2025 itself. So, just to understand what this E10 or E20, what it means. So, what the government is looking at right now with the ethanol project is about 10% blending with petrol by 2022. Although there was an initial talk about having 20% blending by 2030, now it has been reduced to 2025 itself. And also by 2030, they're looking at 5% blending with having a biodiesel blend with the diesel itself. So in that case, what is the government going to benefit? Obviously, it will save on the fuel imports from the other countries, because India is heavily dependent on imports for fuel, especially from the Middle East and the Russian and also some of the Asian countries where we are getting the fuel. So it obviously wants to reduce the fuel cost. Again, one more technology which has fastened up the process is what previously used to happen was ethanol was basically being made only from the sugarcane and sugarcane byproducts. But now there is an option. There is a push from the government to go for integrated plants, wherein you will be looking at multi-grain processing units, which could be from maize, which could be from rice, or it could be from even other products like such as barley, sorghum, even your ragi. Basically, what the requirement is, the pulses or the raw material should have starch content in it. The more the starch content, the more it is better for as a raw material for making ethanol. So, like all of there is a lot of push from the government. They have released this EBP 2020. But let me tell you one thing. It is not mandatory that in order to set up an ethanol plant, you should go with the government program. Say, for example, somebody says that, I can personally have, invest the money, then you can still go with the entire, setting up of an ethanol project. But you will not be supplying to the OMCs, which is the oil marketing companies. You will be making ethanol for various other purposes. So many people come back and say that, what if I will not be able to supply to the OMC, or what if I do not get the requisite approvals? So currently, with the current program, it says 75% of the produce, if you go with the EBP program, has to be given to the OMCs. But there are so many other uses of ethanol. That is, it could be used in drugs, plastics, lacquers, polishes, cosmetics, and your biggest use of ethanol is for alcohol. So all these distilleries, the alcohol making units, have to buy ethanol as their initial raw material, and then only processes into whichever liquor they are making. So just if somebody has a long-term vision, they could probably think that all the ethanol which is now being made, or which the existing sugar factories are making, will be enough to supply to the OMCs, right? So what will these industries do then? So they also need ethanol, right? Because they are already existing industries where ethanol is required. They've been running from so many years. So in these cases, these industries can be your customers. In case you are going for a smaller capacity plant, or unofficially there are talks that anything below 100 KLPD might or might not get approved. So in all these cases, if somebody wants to go for a lesser capacity plant, he can still go, but there are some of these schemes might not be applicable, the interest subvention and other things. But he can set it up and still be a supplier to these, end products, right? Uh, so before we even get into the program or the EBP thing and things like that, what is ethanol? So ethanol goes by the name of ethyl alcohol, which is its chemical name, represented by C2H5OH. Basically, it's a highly flammable liquid which is made by distillation of the starch or sugar. So basically, it is fermented starch or sugar. You distill it, you keep on distilling, then you evaporate the water content out of it, and then you have something called ethanol. This is in layman's terms. But obviously, there is a long process behind it. You need to, first of all, in case you are going for sugarcane juice as your raw material, then it's slightly simpler. Else, there is some more pre-preparation steps that are required. Now, although traditionally it was being made with only sugar or sugar syrup, molasses, or it could be even the beetroot sugar juice that can be used. But these are very kind of lab methods. Commercially, it is only through sugarcane that it was being made. With that, now since I mentioned there is an option to make it using the grains as well, and then the government has opened up its FCI godowns, saying that you could use our old grains or old rice that is available. And then since maize does not come under a food crop, so maize also is available in large quantities in India, so that could also be used as a raw material. The technology that is used as of today is basically called the enzyme technology, which is very good which basically helps in the project economics and keeping the project a more sustainable one. There are other methods as well. Next is, like I said, basically, if a layman asks, it's only 3 steps, that is fermentation, distillation, and evaporation of the evaporation, which will give you the ethanol. So with that, just to give a small understanding of how the process works. Obviously, this is a flow chart, so there is a lot of logic that goes behind setting up the entire plant. When you see a molasses plant, it's pretty much easy to understand. So basically, the molasses comes in, either it could be C molasses or B molasses. You ferment it. Fermentation unit gives out your CO2, which again becomes a byproduct which can be sold. And then you have the distillation process that happens. So distillation, again, you could do further steps on distillation and look at going at making a ENA or RS or whatever. RS is rectified spirit and ENA is extra neutral alcohol. So the again, you have byproducts that you can get out of the distillation process, which can be used for basically as raw material for the fodder industry. Now, the final product after distillation is the fuel grade alcohol that you get. So this is when the molasses is used as a raw material. The process after fermentation is same even with the grain-based plant, but before that there is some pre-preparation activity that is involved. That is, the grain has to be first actually made into a flour, and then the slurry has to be made. Basically, what you are trying to do is loosen up the starch that is available in the grain and liquefying it. Now, once that is done, the mash is then sent to a fermentation process. Right. Now, again, the entire the next set of steps again continues with the same thing: distillation, and then you evaporate out of the sun to get the DDGS. So, what is DDGS? It is basically dried distillers grain. It has some solubles along with it. It is basically used as a raw material to the fodder industry. So, if you look at some of the government policies today, I read in some of the newsletters saying that if somebody has a good budget, then they can even look at a very completely integrated unit, which will have the ethanol plant, and then you could have a a small plant which will make cattle feed, and also look at CBG as a option. But obviously all this will involve a lot of cost. Government is also telling, instead of just doing ethanol from the grains and the sugarcane part, you can also look at making ethanol from the waste that is left over as stubble and things like that. But obviously, for a private player, it might be very expensive, because as of today, only IOCL and BPCL are the only units which have set up the this kind of a plant, right? But an integrated plant obviously makes more sense, because you will be the consumer of all the byproducts that are coming out, and you could look at various options as well, right? So, like I said again, multiple applications are there. It's not just this, giving it to the fuel companies, that is the OMCs. Um, but for a long term or sustainable kind of a product, and also to look at the benefits that you are getting from the government, then this is the best suited option. So when we say the EBP 2022 program, what exactly is involved in it? Obviously, there is a lot of government subsidy that is coming in. What it basically means is that government is going to help you in setting up the plant. 95% of your investment, say for an 100 KLPD plant today, even if you uh, not look at the large scale suppliers, then you could look at a plant cost of at least about 130 CR. Right now, with that kind of a budget, government is saying that 95% of it can be funded through the banks. So there is the interest subvention scheme, which makes sure that you are getting it at a very low interest at about 6%. Now, why? So, what is it that the entrepreneur has to bring in? Is basically he has to bring in a collateral for about 20 to 30% of that money from his end. Although there are debates on how much is the exact collateral. Obviously, banks need to secure their funding, so they will make sure that there is some considerable amount of skin in the game of the entrepreneur. So they are looking at some collaterals, and obviously the rest 5% of the project cost has to be bought in by the entrepreneur. Now, again, as I was saying, this is for the first generation, ethanol plant only, which is being made from the feedstocks, right? So, or you could use the sugarcane molasses. Any other process, they are saying they won't do it. But if you look at the, list of uh, people who are eligible, then almost everybody and anybody can take it up, provided they meet all those economic and commercial conditions. So anybody who is planning to set up, like I said, a grain-based distillery using the DDGS technique is eligible. Uh, and it should be, right now it is for the 1G method only, that is the first generation method. The 2G method basically is the is where you use the raw materials, which are the stubble and the biomass, etc. So that obviously it goes much higher. So plant cost itself can go up to 400 to 500 crores. So that we are not taking into consideration as of now. So we are looking at only 1G method. And then anybody who is setting up expanding his existing sugarcane processing unit will need to showcase that he is doing a ZLD model, which is zero level discharge. Basically, it means that all the water that you are using will be recirculated, and you are not going to discharge anything into the ground. So obviously you will have to spend a little bit on your ETP and STP units, make sure that the water is being water is being treated properly so that it can be reused. Um, Next is, again, you will have to if you are going for dual feed distilleries, then this this interest subvention scheme is still valid. Again, suppose somebody is I know this sounds a little bit kind of roundabout route. Somebody, if he is going to take alcohol, that is the RS, and again distilling it to make ethanol, then also this scheme is valid. But not many people will be able to do it, obviously. So today what we are doing is we are just keeping a ballpark figure that anybody who wants to set up this plant should go for at least 100 kLPD if he wants to use this government scheme. And like I said, 100 kLPD depends on, we'll look at it about 120 to 130 crores. And anybody who is already having a plant and who is looking at expanding his capability, or extending his existing capacity, then also he can look at this particular scheme. Yeah. So like I said, there is this interest subvention scheme which looks at 6% interest rate, and the rest of it will be borne by the central government. The scheme is considering that the repayment period is for 5 years, and then you also have a 1-year moratorium in this. And then you will also know that once there are a few processes which Nitin will talk about in terms of getting the EC or getting the the entire project approved by the DFPD, that is the Department of Food and Public Distribution, and then getting your pollution control board approvals. You will see that the last step will be you will be making a tri-party agreement with the OMC, that is the oil marketing company, the bank, and yourself. What it basically states is bank has first lien on the amount that the OMC is paying you. So if you look at it, say if you're going for molasses based, it's about 62 rupees, 62 rupees and some paisa for one kiloliter. So if you look at the share or what you can get is about 20 to 22% of that money is only coming to you. The rest obviously goes in repaying your bank loan, whatever you have taken. So that tri-party agreement makes sure that the bank has access to that money which the OMC is paying you. First, the bank gets it, and it's like an escrow account that is made, and then the rest of the money comes to you. So with that in mind, so an OMC agreement is very essential for this, for the bank to give you that loan. Next is the okay, obviously you will get the in principle approval from the bank when you're applying for these loans, but the final approval you can get, the term loan is sanctioned after you get the environmental clearance. Again, like I said, the collateral security is just about 5% of the total amount. Although the process has already begun. On 22nd April, we got the new expression of interest from the DFPD and also from the EC. So you can now come and apply for it. But let me tell you, it takes at least practical on-ground experience is that it takes at least 1 to 1.5 months to make you ready to go for the application itself. That is, you need to get your CMA and get your DPR. Get also your net worth document ready. Also, if there are many directors, then everybody's net worth has to be put in. A private limited company has to be formed. So all these has to be in place before you can even start the application process. And then how it works. The last month, although it says that the year ends in October, for all practical purposes, I think September should be what anybody who is seriously looking into it should target, because the last month usually goes around in getting all the documents in place and things like that, and you obviously don't want to be the last one to apply, because there could be many players who are looking at applying for this. So I think Nitin will take you through the next few slides, and then I will again join you in explaining what are the pros and cons of going for this ethanol blending program, and also what are the other options that are available. Over to you, Nitin.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, good sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I think my voice is also loud and clear for everyone.
Yes.
So I'm starting the main things what has to be considered for this ethanol project as per the this new inter subvention scheme. So the basic pre-documentation work is very important for this ethanol plant because it has a very much importance from the ministry that we have to submit few prerequisite documents in terms of a land, in terms of a project report, in terms of a technology what we are using, what raw material we are utilizing for this plant in our location. All those things mandatorily we need to be pre-planned and we need to execute the work. So the basically the complete ethanol project from the ministry, from us, or it is divided into two phases. The first phase we call it as a completely documentation stage and approvals, the basic approvals and other things. And then the second phase is the execution. Execution comes where we start working on the practical application of the implementation of the project, starting from the land development, then followed with the layouts, construction, plant commissioning, machinery installation, everything. So phase one, what it states, the preliminary, the or the major, which that this 2022 scheme has come up with the main mandatory part is the land. In the last year's notification, if you have gone through, there was no mandatory for a land to get a approval from a DFPD or from an EC. We can usually say that in this district I have a land, I can, and then I can apply and I could have got the approval from the last year notification. But in this year, ministry has come up with this strict part that one who want to set up an ethanol plant, he need to have a proper land as per the environmental norms. So why is again this, even though it is called as a greenfield project and we are leaving some area for a greenfield assessment, still the product itself, ethanol, it is a concentrated one, it is a red category product. All this has to be followed as in a strictly basis. So EC norms, I'm going to explain what exactly this EC norm states in selection of a land in the next coming slides. Then comes the preparation of a complete project concept. Conceptualization, when we say like, for example, someone from the location of Karnataka in some district, then we need to see in that district what is the raw material available, how good the water availability is there, all those things considering, then we need to see whether it is feasible to set up ethanol plant in that location. That is what the conceptualization of the entire project comes. Then once the conceptualization is ready, then we can go for the next step, that followed doing a financial module, detailed project report, and then the background assessment of the promoter who want to set up the ethanol plant. Credit monitoring and assessment is required as per the bank, and then preparing a complete business plan how this works. So yeah, consider, yeah, we are ready with all the above documents. Then what is the first step to do? Once we have all the above documents, once we have a land converted into agriculture use and we are ready to apply, the first process is the getting the environmental clearance as per the new notification. With environmental clearance notification only, we have to go for a DFPD for submission of expression of interest. Then followed with, once we get a principal sanction letter from the ministry also that we are agreeing this client to set up an ethanol plant in that location since he has passed the environmental clearance, and also the project report submitted is fit to the ethanol criteria, then we can go and approach to the bank for the loan approval, followed with OMC's agreements and other things. So again, I'm repeating here is the land is the major part. If the land is there, if it is an agriculture land, we have to convert it into an industrial use. If it is an industrial land, then we can directly prepare the following pre-documentation work and we can start applying for the environmental clearance part. Tentatively, when we say if someone has agriculture land and you want to convert it into an NEA, then usually by default it will take minimum of 20-25 days, maximum 40-45 days we need it. And also for the environmental clearance part, this is a central approval where we have to get this one EC clearance with an authorized NABD certified EC consultant assessment. Bare minimum 60 days easily it will take. So roughly consider that 30 days for the conversion plus 60 days for the AC. So total 90 days easily it will take for this work itself. In the timeline now we have of 5 months. So 3 months goes for this work itself. So then we need to consider that we whatever the 5 months we have, already 3 months is scheduled for this activity if we want to go ahead. So basic requirements in terms of EC norms, I was saying about the land. Land should be as per the environmental clearance norms. What it says, the land should be minimum of 6 kilometer away from the village zone, which is having 3,000 plus population, and also it should be minimum of 6 to 7 kilometers away from the forest reserve forest zone. Also, this is the main criteria which EC has given that to give the approval from them. So then exactly. Once the land we are confirmed that okay, this land is suitable for ethanol, then we need to see what is the water availability for this, because water is another major source which required for this ethanol plant. Roughly, when we say 1:7 or 1:8 ratio, means 1 liter of ethanol need almost 8 liters of water. Yeah, obviously there will be a recycled water can be used, another four liters or 5 liters, but we need to have the sustainable availability of water. Maybe nearby reservoirs we can use, nearby channels we can use, or if there is no water availability in that one, we need to do a ground assessment study through a geology team to know how the under the ground how the water availability is there. If that is there, that can be arranged. Along with that, we also have to create a artificial pond for collection of the water, which can be used in the later stage. So artificial ponds also we need to create in the green belt area. And then comes the good connectivity for the roads and rails, which is very much important again, because any land which is in the very remote place and it doesn't have any proper road, then the transportation becomes very difficult. Not only the transportation, the fire safety, trucks to move over there in case of any hazardous issue occurs, and regular transportation of the raw materials to inward and the finished goods to outward. We need a proper road availability there. Good highway connections is very important for this project to make it very feasible to go. Then local government policies and regulations, we need to check. Obviously, the local clearance will be there and the central clearance will be there. Will give you the detailed NOCs which has to be taken care during the land selections. Then nearest warehouses, we can see where you can procure the raw materials, the broken rice or a maize where you can using. And the labor availability, obviously this is completely need a very huge amount of labor. For example, in the right hand side, if you can see, I have given a rough idea of the capacity of the plant and the land requirement. So 100 KLPD, 1 lakh liter per day capacity of output project. If we consider, technically 25 acres we need for this plant to fit in. Because why 25 acres? As you can see, 33% is a mandatory criteria from a ministry to leave it as a green belt area, since the process which undergoes here for producing the ethanol is a chemical process. So we have to leave this 33% as a green belt area. Open area 4 acres will utilize for the roads and other purpose, and the complete 14 acres technically will fit in a construction area. So we usually tell 25 acres is a feasible one, but we suggest our client to have at least 30 acres if they are planning for 100 KLPD. So considering why 30 acres means, if example, for a period of 5 years you will go for 100 KLPD, then later if you want to expand within 25 acres, it becomes very difficult to go for an expansion for 150 or a 200 KLPD. So keep it a buffer for another 5 to 10 acres. That will be a very feasible, because anyhow land is a fixed asset for you also. There won't be any issue if in the future also. And I have given another example. You can see for a 60 KLPD, roughly around 16 acres. So here also we suggest take a buffer of 4 acres, keep a 20 acres for considering future expansion. Maybe in another 2-3 years you want to go for a 100 KLPD, then 22 acres if it is there, easily we can go for an expansion. So major components of the ethanol project. So when we say the process only, not only the major components, we have all other utilities also. You can go through the list here. One is the main technical process of the ethanol. Second comes the co-power generation unit. because we can't relay or we can't depend on the state government's electricity supply for this plant, because it won't be economically feasible for that one. So in-house coke generation plant should be there. And if I say what is the capacity, then for an 100 KLPD plant, at least 3.5 megawatt plant is required. Then and for emergency, we need a power backup DG. As I told earlier, we need a water storage and distribution systems where the collection of water, rainwater, everything happens. And effluent treatment plant and water treatment plant is a mandatory component. Fire protection and firefighting systems for any hazardous, and we need to have a enough. These are the very major components which we have mentioned here. With respect to that completely project cost, we are just estimating around for an 100 KLPD 150 to 160, with including a small margin of working capital, and plus whatever the tax and GST comes, we can consider with the current price of the steel and the current suppliers which are quoting for the project cost. And for a 60 KLPD, 80 to 95 to 95 CR is the ideal budget to go for. Apart from this, there are other add-on costs which are working capital will be common as an add-on. And as Guru sir mentioned, we need to, a promoter need to have a collateral of 5% plus equity of 5% to get an approval from the ministry. And why, if someone asks now, like why only 160 KLPD projections we have given? So, ideally or to feasibility, when we say why which capacity of plant is feasible, these two is the best option. We usually tell that 100 is the best option for anyone who want to start. But if still someone says that no, I want to start with very bare minimum, which can be the very minimum cost and minimum capacity to go, then we can say 60 is the one with very thin margin. It is ideal to start with, and later you can go for future expansion for a 60 KLPD plant. So yeah, as I explained, in the phase one activity, pre-documentation work, which this is a little more briefer. What happens in the pre-documentation work: conceptualization, financial module, detailed project report, complete technicality of the manufacturing process, because it has to be ZLD planned and DDGS has to be implemented. Complete technical assessment and also marketing assessment. Also, we need to see where are the nearby collection centers of the OMCs which can be approached once we get the approval from the ministry. And complete costing of the project and estimation for the future, for down the line 5 years, the complete business module and financial module, and applying a term loan application to the bank once we get the approval from the ministry. This is the one activity, and the parallel activity which we need to start, as I told, was the environmental clearance. So these two activities can be worked in a parallel. Once we have you have a land converted, we can start the activity of environmental clearance. Usually, days of 60 days it will take. Then once we have the environmental clearance in hand, directly we can submit our expression of interest to the ministry through a DFPD portal, and we'll get usually 30 to 45 days of a timeline to get a reward from the ministry for the application which we have submitted. So what happens in phase two? Once we get the approval from the ministry, then it goes the implementation of the project, followed with getting approval from the bank and signing a tri-party agreement. Then once the banks also gives us the complete schedule of when the amount will be disbursed, so then we start working on that part. Like bank will may say that there will be a 4 to 5 years scheduled payment disbursement. According to that, we will start working on the activities. Follow, like it may start from the complete land and site development, and then starting the non-technical civil work, which is the basic part which we have to start, and followed with the arranging the core facilities and basic facilities such as power houses, ETPs and other things. And then once we get the machinery supplied to the site location, then we can start with the plant and machinery installation, commissioning, and then followed with parallel activity where we need to work on the IT support for part or the ERP model which need to run the operation and to maintain the complete in and out of the project. And the regulatory permissions also, we need to parallelly start applying and getting the permissions. So the permissions part, when we say there are almost 14 plus clearances or NOCs, I would say that we need to take it from local authorities and also from the central authorities. So tentatively, the project timeline, you consider it as 15 months is a timeline post approval of the DFPD to complete the project in installation, commissioning, doing the trial runs, training the employees, and hand over the commercial running project to the client. So coming to the regulatory compliances. So as I said, the land conversion is the one, followed with EC. Then comes the state pollution control board clearance, which is mandatory. Then from the local, for the panchayat clearance we need to take, town planning clearance we need to take, firefighting certification we need to make, because that is one of the major part. The authorized team will come and assess the facility which we have established for the firefighting. Then the forest department NOC we need to take. Obviously, excise department and another mandatory, because it comes under the alcohol category. And if we are using the reservoir water source, if you are that one permission for lifting the water, we need to take that permission from the water department. And then rainwater assessment permission and power co-power generation unit permission for setting up our own co-power generation unit. So these are the major NOCs we need to take it. I think the above two, the land conversion and the EC will take it in a phase one, and followed with other thing we can parallelly start working on the phase two activity when we start working on after post approval of the DFPD. So now comes why this need of ethanol in India. So there are certain key factors. India is the second largest population in the world, which is again the largest consumption of the fuel. Also, you can see the last year's 2020 2021's just an the report which came from the ethanol plant, which came from the team of ethanol blending program, that over 185 million ton we have imported there, which worth of $551 billion. So that is very huge. Considering this one, and also it's not like we were not doing this ethanol earlier, or we were not doing the blending earlier. We were doing with a very small percentage, I say 5 or 10. Now it has been revised to make it as a 20%. So now the government E20 program has been came into act to save this the burden of the cost which of the import of ethanol. What is happening, or if you tell in INR, it is almost 30,000 crores annually we are going to save. That is one major factor, but there are additional sub factors also, where using an ethanol, it is making the fuel be low polluting fuel, converting into low polluting fuel, which results to low carbon emission to the environment, better air quality we will get. Then obviously, if the efficiency of the fuel after blending ethanol is coming lower than the petrol price, why can't we go for this one? That is a feasible option. And second, the third major point, what we have very good amount of cultivation of grains or sugarcane, anything in India. India is a agricultural country, and we have surplus amount of grain stored all over the FCIs also, as per the government data which has been analyzed, to utilize those surplus amount of grains which has been stored, or the broken rice which has been stored, or old damaged rice which has been stored. So all these, considering all these factors, this E20 blending program policy has been come into act from the government. Obviously, once all these successfully achieved, there will be drastic reduce in the fuel prices. We can see that one in the down the line coming years. Now, currently, you all might have seen the recent news that it is stating that the government already achieved the 10% which has been planned, and government is now moving faster to achieve the 20% with before the scheduled time. So earlier, as Guru sir said earlier, target defined was 2030 for the 20% blending program. But within 2 years, the target has been revised and advanced to 2025, 2026, because of the progress happening in the country, how the entrepreneurs are coming out to start this ethanol plant, how the scheme has been successfully utilized by the people in the country. The number of plants we have got up to, considering that estimates, it has been reduced to 2025, 2026 for the 20% target. And the recent news, what the ministry has ruled out, his ministry has given is the 10% program which was planned to complete in this coming November of 2022, that has been achieved already 5 months ahead of that one, ahead of the deadline itself. So we are successfully running in the achieving the 20% target before the timeline. And yeah, obviously this is a very lucrative business to someone who can look into it. So coming to solution buggy, or we what we are handling the ethanol project across India. So you can see just an overview we have kept. So we have two projects in UP, we have one in West Bengal, in MP we are handling one, in down Karnataka we have three, in Maharashtra we have two projects. If you see the capacities which we have mentioned here, which we are handling for our clients, it starts from 60, not less than 60 kLPD, which is an ideal one to start. It can go up to 200, 250 also, according to the financial background what the promoter have. But as ideally says, 60% is very very ideal. If you say very minimum I want to go, then 60% is a best one to start. So I think I'll again call back Guru sir for
Yeah.
taking the high for the further.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Nathan. So I think most of us on this webinar will now be in a mindset that being an ethanol entrepreneur is something like being like Shah Rukh Khan in a Hindi movie, right? So he has everything. So obviously the government is going to buy the ethanol that you are making, and then you get all the benefits. 95% of it is being funded by the central banks. So then where the actual concern is, or where is the villain in this, right? So villain to hona hi chahiye. Sorry for the Hindi, but what is happening basically is today is you know you will be bringing in that 5% you know the 5% investment that is required, and then you will also be getting the land and other things. So that is from the entrepreneur's end. But the bigger challenge here is once you make the ethanol, you will also have to look at what exactly will you do with the byproducts. Say there is DDGS which is coming in, and then there is you will have to look at what you will do with the CO2, and also you will have to factor in that government prices may or may not increase over the next few years, their buyback prices. Although right now ethanol is in a state where, like a newborn baby, and everybody is trying to come and support. So even if 2 days back, if you see, the OMCs have come back and said that anybody already doing ethanol manufacturing, we can even take some cost of the power that is being utilized. So like these, there are a lot of government initiatives that are being done now, but what will happen over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have to figure out. So obviously the investment is one thing, and also you should be sure that you will be able to handle the workforce. And being a project which is 100 crores and upwards, you should be in a position to be able to take care of the government. Obviously involvement over there. There could be involvement from the local politicians as well. So all these are some of the cons that you will have to look at. So being a project management company ourselves, we need to educate the entrepreneurs on both the pros and cons. So as long as you know what you can do with the DDGS, which is going to be generated in a considerable amount, and you are able to handle the workforce, and setting up a plant is not the end all of everything. You should also be good at executing it, the day-to-day operations part of it. So if that is taken care of, then this is something that everybody who is having an idea in this sector can go for. So just to give an understanding of what are the projects that we have worked on prior to this, is also in the trending sectors, which are the two-wheeler electric vehicle assembly units, or it could be in AC manufacturing unit based out of Greater Noida. And then there is a drone technology that we are jointly working with the Israeli government, with an Israeli company again. We have also helped in setting up of load cell and super capacitors. which all come under the same kind of investment category that we are talking about here. Overseas as well, we are working on a few plants in Nepal, as well as a sericulture plant in Abu Dhabi as well. So the other government schemes, again, we thought of putting in that if you are looking at food and beverages as a sector, there are more schemes which are also becoming popular day by day. The APC scheme is one. There is an integrated cold chain scheme which has been recently on 8th of June, which has been relaunched. And then there is the Operation Greens as well, which is for the long-term interventions. So other sunrise business ideas, we just thought in to put it here. If somebody is kind of looking at a lower budget, or if somebody's budget is not matching, then these are some of the areas that you could look at. Obviously, disposable medical products is something which is in demand right now. And then when you look at plant-based foods, there are host of opportunities which are in the protein-based meat and protein-based milks, alternative to the existing milk and meat. Cosmetics, again, there are a lot of healthcare related products which can be looked at. And also, when we look at other areas, edible oil is something which has been in use for a long time now. Obviously, at a much lower budget, it can be set up the entire units. There are alternatives to plastic products as well that could be looked at. Plastic being banned from all the Horeca segments on June 1st. This is something that we can look at. Then there is consumer electronics as well, which you can look at. Big demand there with semiconductors. There is a lot of PLI scheme coming in for that, so you could be a supplier to that as well. Then there are sectors like millet-based foods, which is having a lot of demand. Then there is agrochemicals as well. When we say fertilizers, it could be new age fertilizers as well, which are classified into different categories. So which are organic fertilizers and things like that. Again, home care products is something that could be looked at. Also, aerospace and defense is something that is been in prominence. There are about 309 defense related parts that have been banned from importing. So that is something that you could look at as a option as well. Other than that, there are obviously some trending ideas, like we said, batteries for electrical vehicles, or even the frames for these electrical vehicles. There is always solar panel manufacturing, which could be looked at. There are a few construction chemicals which are a lot in demand, which can bring in a lot of customers within India itself. A toy cluster is being set up within Karnataka, so that is something that is bagging a lot of attention as well. So with that, we would want to conclude giving you the pros and cons of setting up the plant in ethanol. Like I said, we have an expert with us, Mr. Venkatesh Shetty, who is also working together with us and as well as independently in helping people to set up the ethanol plants. Venkatesh ji, there are a few questions. I think I will pick and choose, and maybe you could throw some light on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody is asking, can the plant be set up in any location?
Ideally, the main constraint in the ethanol business is the land required. And the second thing is the environment clearances. So now environment clearances, there are many rules, and like you should be far away from the village, you should be far away from the river or the water source, you should be far away from the railway, all those things. But the other aspect is, again, they say that you should be nearer to the water source to use that water for your process, and you should be nearer to railway station to pick up your raw material or to sell the storage. Because now after some time, what will happen is your ethanol will move through railway wagons only. Through vehicle movement, it is very tough. So maybe you can see by 2025 or 24, ethanol will move through the rail wagons only. So further work is going on. So like the advantage is you should look for nearer to the railway station instead of the road. And the other aspect is you can set up anywhere, subject to that you can receive the raw material in that capacity. So like you can say that, for example, we'll take something like you can say the example of Jammu Kashmir. There I think so rice is very less. But if you want to set up rice-based ethanol in the Jammu Kashmir, then what you have to do is you should at least have the 4 to 5 months buffer of raw material. But to have that buffer of raw material of 4 to 5 months, the capital invest required is very high. It's like approximately it can be 80 to 100 crores working capital only for the grains. So that becomes too tough. So that's why what will happen is first you should do the locational analysis. Like you have to see whether which is produced more in your area. Like if your maize is produced more in your area, you should do the maize survey. Like how many months you are going to use the maize, and then similarly you should use the rice. So like for example, some of the areas would be rich in rice and maize also. Then what you will do is based on this price speculation, you will go for either rice or the maize. But if you ask me technically, rice will give you more yield of ethanol, but you should mix some of the maize in that to get the color for the DDGs. So it can be like based on the pricing, you can say it can be 80-20 ratio of rice versus maize, or it can be 10 versus 90 versus 10 against the rice and maize. So the aspect is it's like too tough to answer that and which location we can set up. But the main three parameters which you have to look for is one is the land selection as well as the land cost. It should not happen that the interested land which you are having is that might be 5 crores per acre, so that you can't set up in that 20-25 acres. So you should look for that also, the costing of the land. The second is the ease of environment clearance, and then the third is the ethanol blending points, like where you can supply the ethanol blending of the OMCs. Now the other aspect is the existing ethanol blending points are very few. Consider that our ethanol blending has been very less, but new ethanol blending points are coming up across India. So might be ready by next 1.5 2 years. So you might find that your ethanol blending points might increase, or even you can say that it will double up as compared to the ethanol blending points as in existence today.
Right. So I think, like how Venkatesh ji also said, although the government says that the FCI rice is available to you at 18 rupees or 20 rupees, practically on ground, what makes sense is as long as you have the raw material with you at 15 or 16 rupees, that is when you are going to make the maximum profit. So like how Venkatesh ji said, suppose maize goes to 12 rupees. So that is the time when you have to procure as much as possible and store it. So for that, again, you should have enough silos and capability to store for the next 3 to 4 months. So all these have to be taken into consideration. Also, Venkatesh ji, for a 100 KLPD plant, what is the typical raw material that is required in a day?
So actually, it's like if you are going to use rice, your daily requirement will be between 220 to 230 tons based on the starch content. So like for your banking calculation, or you can say the financial calculation, you can take 230 tons per day. And the thing is, you have to run your distillery ethanol plant for 330 days to reach in that profit margin. Or if you are going to run for 280, 300 days, I doubt it whether you will reach that profit margin. So the consideration is you should definitely run the plant for 330 days. And if you are lucky and if you manage your plant properly, you can run additionally 5-7 days. That it can become 335, 340 days also. So ideally, you should go for a preventive maintenance of, like you can say, 5 days per 3 months. So preventive maintenance, you should definitely go for 20 days. So if you consider 330 days into 230 tons per day, I think so approximate grain requirement for you, if it is rice, it would be 75,000 tons per annum. And then if it is maize, you can add maybe 5 to 8% more on the raw material. So that can be 240, 242 tons per day if you are going to use exclusively maize. If it is a combination of rice and maize, it might be somewhere between 232 to 235 tons based on your this one. And the other aspect is you have to do a lot of planning on the raw material side, because raw material price would fluctuate, and you should definitely go for at least 5 to 6 months grain storage. So that can be 2 months storage in your facility, and the remaining 4 months storage you can set up your grain silos at the procurement centers, or else somewhere the place which is nearer to you, like maybe you can say 150 200 kilometers from your site, and from where you can get your material within, like you can say, 6 to 8 hours. So that is the aspect in that one. And in the ethanol, the main business runs on the working capital. because process is very simplified in India about the ethanol processing. So the thing is how you save the money on the raw material, that will help you in the profit margins, because your raw material cost is 50 to 54% of your revenue. So I think what happens is, as a owner or as an entrepreneur, your concentration, like 80% of your time should be on the raw material part, like from where I should get the raw material, whether I should get maize from the Brazil, whether I should get the rice from the surplus states in India like Andhra, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Tamil Nadu, and I stock the rice during that season, or you'll try to get the maize from Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana, and Bihar and UP. So that it becomes your strategy, that from where you are going to get the material and how much you are going to stock. And it's like, to tell it's very simple that you store 5 to 6 months stock, but the thing is working capital required is very, like, it's like huge number. If you are going to stock your grains for 5 months also, that would be definitely 25 to 30 crores only on the working on the raw material, like raw material also only the grains. So again, in that aspect, you have to see that whether you have that much financial appetite, or you have that much muscle, you can tell that to get the working capital from the banks. So end of the day, what happens is, in ethanol, you should have a good working capital. If you consider the ethanol also, government is giving you 21 days credit period. So then what will happen is, if you are going for 100 kiloliters per day, your ethanol, like you can say, the receivables is alone is 10 to 11 crores. So you can imagine the quantum of working capital required. So the government might do it in lesser days also, but as per the policy, they are mentioning 21 days. So that itself is a bigger challenge for you, apart from the raw material.
Right. And also, some people are asking what is the price that they can sell it for. So the price is fixed as of this ethanol supply year.
Yes.
So Venkatesh ji, you can tell what is the price difference between different raw materials.
Sir, actually, government is encouraging to use the surplus rice from the FCI. FCI rice is, they are going to give you it on 20 rupees. But if you add loading, unloading, your transport, all these expenses, that will be definitely 21.5 rupees. Whereas your broken rice, I'm telling you, the not related to this season. This season it has been totally blank. So like your broken rice, definitely the price is between 14 to 18 rupees, based on the location, based on the starch content, and based on the availability and ease of transport. Whereas maize prices, maize prices also same pattern, like it would be between 15 to 17 rupees. But this year what happened is, there was deficit for maize. So that's why what happened is, broken rice is now selling for 20 to 24 rupees also. So next year, don't expect that broken rice will sell for this higher amount. Broken rice has to be within below 18 rupees, because if your broken rice price exceeds 18 rupees, you should go for FCI rice, because the sales price and the sales price difference between FCI rice and our like market rice is 4 rupees. So if your broken price is 18 rupees, you should definitely go for FCI rice. That you should be ready during your business planning, that okay, I should have my option that I'm going to procure my material from the FCA also. So that is the other aspect. And like this year, I don't know how many traders might be there in this session. Don't expect that broken rice will reach 22, 24, 26, 28. It's like that price won't be there next year, because maize this year has been deficit production. Next year maize would be a bumper production, and it will happen such that maize price will definitely fall down, and proportionally rice will fall down, because the broken rice and the maize are majorly used in the cattle feed business. So for cattle feed, once you are going to do the DDGS will become a substitute for your maize. So there is no misconception that you won't get the maize. You will get the maize also, you get the rice also. The protein which you are getting is that will substitute your maize and rice used in the cattle feed. So on that basis, you don't have to worry that DDGS prices will fall down. And regarding the ethanol prices, the ENA means the extra neutral alcohol, which goes into the alcohol companies. That price varies as per the season, as per the, like you can say, the monthly requirement. Sometimes it would be 66 rupees per liter, and sometimes it would be 48 rupees per liter also. So to reduce that, this one government, what has they done is, they have fixed the ethanol price, and that is scientific calculation. You can't tell that it's a random something. It's a scientific calculation based on the raw material pricing, your processing cost, your petrol cost, all those things. So what now government is giving you, 53 rupees, 52.892 is the ethanol price at moment. But that will definitely increase in this December by 2 or 3 rupees due to increase in the raw material cost as well as the power, chemicals, all those costs. So next year, what happened? Next year means I am telling you the December to November is the ethanol year. So like you can tell that 1st December 2022, your ethanol price from the government might be 55. So now if you are planning now, you might reach your commercial operations by next October, like October 2023 or November, December 2023. So that time this 55 rupees of December 2022 might become 56, 56.5, 57 also. So you don't have to worry that your margins would be less, because considering the current market price, no, margins are very less. Not less, it's like handsome margins only. You can say like 12 to 13% on the tax basis also. But still, if your raw material, if you're going to get of a lesser price, you can make good margins in that one. Because the other logic is, if you're going to use the 10,000 ton silo, your per annum storage cost of 1 kg would be 0.6 rupees only. So you can imagine how beneficial it is if you go for the additional investment in this silo and you can get the raw material in this season. And then you will tell me that now working capital would be more. But the thing is, here you are going to spend 0.6 rupees only. So if you compare this 0.6 with the working capital, where you are going like 0.5% something more, that will be definitely beneficial for you.
Right. Right. So I think obviously there are a lot of questions that are coming in and a lot of interest as well. But like how Venkatesh ji said, there are a few things that an entrepreneur has to keep in mind, considering that it is a large investment that you are going for, and also the government is funding a lot of parts of it, but your involvement is also there in it. Having said that, I think what we have planned for this at the end of the session is also that if anybody wants to know more about the entire process of ethanol and also the loan process and things like that, you could probably contact our sales team as well. They will guide you through a process, and also for today and I think for the next 2 to 3 days, there is a a discount on the membership as well. It's more like a fees that you could pay and learn a little bit more about this, and also get your initial level of assessment done, so that when you're going to look at such a huge investment, you should be very sure that this is something that is feasible for you. So I think with that we have short the time limit as well for this webinar. Thank you all for being a patient audience on this. Any questions you have, do write to us. Our sales team will filter it and then send it to the expert as well, Mr. Venkatesh, and we can also answer a few questions. So thank you, Venkatesh ji. Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience. Yeah.